One time I was getting ready to go to school, but then I heard a sound that was similar to thunder. It drained my color from my face because it was so unexpected, but then I shrugged it off and went to school. But then I got a weather alert on my phone. It said, "Stay indoors, severe thunderstorms in your town. City power may go out due to the high winds." I was close to the school, so I had to make decisions. I had to think if I should go home or go to school. I thought, why not go to the school? So I ran to the school. It took me around 1 minute to go there, due to me being close to the school. So then I arrived and ran inside, soaking wet. But something was suspicious, because no one was there. So I thought maybe school got canceled, but didn't tell us. That was weird because it told us if school was canceled or not. So I searched the entire school, but still no one was here except for me. This was getting so suspicious. I walked to the principal's office, which was on the first floor. The principal was there, though. So I asked him, "Where is everybody?" He said, "I don't know." So I asked him, was school canceled or not? He responded to me saying no. So we thought maybe they stayed home due to the thunderstorm. I had to stay here due to the high winds and a possible tornado forming. That's how high the winds were. I was frightened. The principal told me to stay in here, which I was going to stay in here. There was nothing to do here, so I just looked on my phone. I was scrolling on TikTok, just watching random memes. The principal told me to get my Chromebook because I still had to learn. I said okay, and then went to my class to get my Chromebook, but I was pissed I had to do work when no one was here. Then 1 minute later, I arrived in the principal's office, and he assigned me some random work. He assigned me a test we were supposed to do today. I did the test in like 15 minutes, because I finished stuff fast, kind of like Sonic. So I turned it in on Google Classroom, and then scrolled on my phone. But then 30 minutes later, I got a tornado warning. I swear you could see my face go pure white. I was even more frightened and scared. I don't want to be spinning around in a tornado like a broken automatic vacuum. I thought I was going to die at this point. Even Principal Jonathan was shocked when he saw the alert on his phone. The alert said, "Tornado forming and is rapidly coming towards your area. Head to the lowest floor. Go to the basement if you have one communication service are not available." We ran downstairs to the basement as fast as the speed of light. I swear I almost fell down the stairs from running that fast. We got inside the basement, which was underground, and went to a sturdy part of the basement. Well, a room, because there's a room in case of a tornado. We go inside and do that donkey position that's supposed to keep us safe. Safe is in quotes. Anyways, we got in that position and prayed for the best. The winds were so fast we could hear it from the basement. But the tornado never came to our school. We hoped it did not come to our houses because that's where my everything was. I was texting my mom of what was happening, and my principal was watching the news of this tornado. My mom was aware of what was happening. She said the tornado is near her work, and she is in their basement. I was praying for my mom. My principal said the tornado is estimated to go away in 10 minutes, but it is going to rapidly expand for the next 5 minutes. I was half happy and half worried. The thing I was worried about was my mom. She was also my everything. But still, the tornado didn't come to my school, so I was getting happier and more sad. I was happy the tornado isn't at my school, but sad that the tornado is near my mom's work. No one deserves to be involved in a tornado situation. But then my mom texted me and said she got injured. I almost passed out reading that message. I told Principal Jonathan what happened to my mom. He got as white as vanilla ice cream after hearing what I said. But 1 minute later, we got another alert saying the tornado is over and you can resume to your usual schedule. I was sad and happy. My principal let me go home, which was not that far away. 1 hour later, my mom texted me to come to the hospital, which was 1 minute away using a car. I was panicked, but went to the hospital. 5 minutes later, I saw my mom in a cast, but happy. I was happy that she was happy. I hugged her so tight and cried in happiness. She was happy, and then we went home and didn't go to school for a week because school was canceled for a week.
This story was not based on a true story, it was made up.
One time I was doing a test. I finished in around 35 minutes. When I got to the final question and finished it, I was happy I didn't have test for the rest of the day. So I brought my test to the teacher. She said thank you. So I said you're welcome and went back to my desk to read a book, because that's what I was supposed to do after finishing a test. So I read a book I liked for 30 minutes, but then she called me over to her seat. So I got up and walked over to her desk. I said, "What's up?" She said that you finished the test too quickly, so you have to redo the test. I was pissed off, so I said this in my mind: that was fucking miserable. So I walked back to her desk and said to grade the test. She forgot to grade the test. Yes, forgot. 10 minutes later, when almost everyone was finished, she called me over to her desk. So I walked over to her desk again and I said, "Did you grade my test yet?" She said yes, and I got 87, which is pretty good. So I was happy and walked back to my desk.
The end. D.
One time, me and my friend were doing an try not to laugh challenge. The one where we have water in our mouths and whoever spits it out loses. We were watching a try not to laugh video, but they were not funny at all. So we found a new try not to laugh video that was super funny. I almost spit my water out. My friend be looking like a three-chin goblin. I finally spat my water out and started laughing so hard, like, oh my god. But then my mom barges into my room and screams, "No, I got jump scared from my mom. My mom said your friend is going home now, and you're grounded. I got so angry at my mom and said fine. She said, "Hey, watch your tone, young man. I'm 14, Rena, not a 1-year-old. I said. Then I got grounded for 5 weeks. One time me and my brother were scrolling on TikTok. I was watching random stuff. And so as my brother, I came across a funny video, so I laughed and then scrolled past the video. But 5 minutes later, my brother showed me a video that he thought was funny. The video had this song. I didn't find that video funny at all, especially for a person who hates brain rot, which is me. So I went back to scrolling after fake laughing to my brother. But then another 5 minutes later, I found a video that he will love. It was a video of hating on brain rot, but that was a mistake. He told me he was gonna snitch on me for hating brain rot. Like, bro, it's only my opinion. He said, I don't care. Brain rot is the best. I was like, oh my god, this kid. He was snooching on me because I did not like brain rot. Then 1 minute later, which felt like forever, my mom came over to me with my brother and said, my mom said, "You can't hate on stuff your brother loves." I said, you're kidding, right? My mom was dead serious. Finally, I surrendered and said, fine, whatever. And my mom said, now what do you say to your little brother? I said, sorry. My mom said good and walked away. And then my brother sat down where he was before he snitched on me. So in my mind, I needed to plan a revenge on my little brother because I couldn't let this slide. I was thinking if I should snitch on him for drawing on the wall, which was not a bad idea. So 2 hours later, I was in my room and was planning the revenge in my secret notebook. It had a list of things I can choose for revenge on my lil bro. For example, perm ban his Roblox account or snitch on him. I thought, why not do both? So I got up and secretly stole crayons from his bedroom and went to the wall. But a thought came to my brain. The thought was, what if he would never trust me again? But I said, oh well, and drew the sun and grass with my brother on it. And then told my mom. She didn't believe me at first because she said he would never do that. So I told her to come to the wall. He drew on. My mom was so shocked and screamed, Tommy, get in here now. My brother was scared, which was perfect. My mom instantly told my little brother that he was grounded. And my brother said, what? Woo. My mom said, because you drew on the wall. Now go to your room now, oh. My brother said, fine, I hate you both. My mom said, hey, you're grounded for another month. I said, thank you so much, Mom. My mom said you're welcome and you are ungrounded. The end. One time I was reading my book at my desk in elementary school until someone dookied on the carpet. I was traumatized for life. And no, this was not an accident. This poop was on purpose. I saw my teacher's face get pure red. He said office now. I was trying to be as neutral as possible, like Switzerland, but then the kid blamed me, saying that I forced him to dookie on the carpet. I was like, nitrogen monoxide, he is a liar. But it was too late, and he told me to go to the office with him. I was shocked in a mad way. We were in the office, me being confused as fuck. And then Principal Jonathan told us why we were here. I said he pooped on the carpet and blamed me on forcing him to poop on the carpet. The kid who pooped on the carpet said, but he forced me to poop on the carpet. Principal Jonathan said, that's enough, both of you. And then the principal said, Jack, head back to class, which was me, and said, you stay here, you are suspended for 1 week. The kid was surprised and finally admitted it, that I did not force him, and he did it for fun.
The end. D.
One time, me and my friend were chatting at lunch, and then all of a sudden I get called up by the teacher that's with a student. I was confused because this never happened to me. Anyways, I got up and walked over to the teacher that called me up. The teacher said, why did you say the F word? I was confused and said I didn't. The student that snitched on me said liar. The teacher agreed with the student that tattled on me. I said, I'm telling you, I did not say the F word. The student and teacher still did not believe me one bit. I was getting pissed because I was getting accused. The teacher said, hello, speak up. I said maybe a different student said the F word. The student didn't believe me. The teacher said, fine, we will ask the students in your class if they said the F word. I said, okay. But something snapped in me. I was so angry I got accused of saying the F word. So I told my friend at my table what happened. They were shocked. I was also shocked. The teacher were asking the students in my class if they said the F word because one of them did for sure. When the teacher got to the final student just said yes, which means I did not say the F word. So the teacher apologized to me and they were calling the students' parents. So I was happy. And so as my friends, the accusation was done for me. So we just enjoyed the rest of lunch with my friends talking about random memes and whatever. But at the end of lunch, my teacher this time called their parents because the other teacher told my teacher that a student said the F word. So they called their parents at the end of the day. My teacher called their parents at the end of the day. Here's how it went. Hey, Kyle's mom, so your child said a swear word at school today and we're very strict about swearing. Kylie's mom. Okay, we will have a chat when he gets home. All right, thank you, Kyle's mom. 2 minutes later, Kyle was home, and her mother called him to come to her. He said, all right. The mom said, did you say the F word at school because your teacher told me you did? Kyle said, no, I would never. The mom said, don't you lie to me now, tell me the truth. Kyle said, fine, I did say the F word. The mom said, thank you for telling the truth, but you are grounded for only today. Kyle was mad, so he went to his room and went to bed. And a few hours later, the mom went to bed. Kyle had to apologize to the teacher, but he was forgiven. So he was happy. He thought he would not have been forgiven. But I was still mad I got accused of swearing. So lunch was normal, the day was normal, well, torture school was normal. Everything was normal, no swearing, no accusations. Everything was Norman. But my mom also apologized because she heard what happened to me. I forgive everybody that was in this accusation.
The end. D.
One time I was going to go to the restroom, but then all of a sudden, a lockdown started. I thought it was a practice drill, so we got up and went to the corner, the most life-threatening spot. And then we were giggling and joking about a cooter out there. But I was not talking, or laughing, or giggling. But then I realized something. We were not supposed to have a practice lockdown drill today, so now I was frightened and a little scared. And then all of a sudden I heard something kind of like running in the hallway, so we were scared for a little bit. But then I heard shouting in the hallway, so that got us even more scared. I thought I would die. Some of the girls were crying, while I was speechless. Even my teacher was scared, and he thought I gotta save my class, so he got up and got the bat that was near the teacher's seat, and was prepared for whoever was out there. I was starting to calm down as the minutes went by. The other students were still scared, huddled in the corner, while I thought my life and the other lives would be saved. We heard more footsteps, and the kids screamed slightly. The teacher told them to quiet down. I was just horrified. Now I thought I would die. The students were crying much more. And then I heard screaming that sounded like a student in the hallways. Now I started to cry a little along with the other students. The teacher's face had no color, not even white. That's how scared he was. Not gonna lie, that was kinda funny. Ha ha ha. Anyways, then we heard pounding on the door. The students screamed, and then the teacher opened the closet for the students to go in. We got in the closet while the teacher stayed where he was. The students were still crying in the closet, but I was trying to tell them to quiet down and calm down, but they would not listen. So I just gave up and just hid with the students in the closet in our classroom. And then we heard louder pounding along with a voice that did not sound like a teacher, was not a student for sure, and it had a voice I never heard before. So the students shrieked again. And then it just repeated the voice, the pounding, the everything. But then our worst nightmares came true. The door blasted open. We were so scared that we would get hurt. We heard the teacher scream and beat the intruder up, kinda like a school bully. The girls were screaming so loud my ears were ringing. I've never been this scared in my life, along with the other classmates. But then all of a sudden I heard a thud like an end shot, and my teacher was screaming in pain. And then the intruder walked over to the closet door and just stood there. We were all crying, and then the doorknob started rattling. And then we screamed and huddled in the corner, but the door was locked because if you shut it, unless you have a key, it's always locked. So the cooter was rattling the doorknob and screaming. And then all of a sudden a classmate passed out. The air smelled like blood and gunpowder. I was texting my mom of what was happening. She was scared for me, and I was scared I wouldn't make it out alive along with the other classmates. And then another student passed out. We were so scared, including me. And then our very, very worst nightmare, the Kuta Uta, came in. We screamed so loud, but our dream came true. During the Kuto situation, the cops came. We felt safe. The police said, "Put your hands around your back." To the cooter, one of the students said, "Are we safe now?" That gave the cooter an idea, because he said, "Nitrogen monoxide, you're not come over here." We shrieked. But then the cops snotted the cooter. My ears were ringing. But finally we were safe and the lockdown was over. We got an early release because of the Chima and blood. Me and my mom were watching the news. And it was traumatizing. Here's how it went. Breaking news, a school-wide lockdown happened in South London Middle School. And 4 were injured and no one died. The cooter was arrested and sentenced for 5 years in prison. We were happy but still scared. This was a short part, but this is the end of the series. One time I was walking to school, but then there was a rock, but I didn't even notice it because I wasn't looking. So I tripped and landed on my kneecaps. I screamed because it hurt so much. Keep in mind, my friends were walking to school with me. You think they would help? Nah. They laughed it off, like it was a joke, but it wasn't. And then they walked away like nothing happened. They were betrayers. I was starting to cry due to the pain. And then finally a person walked by and looked at me and said,
"Are you okay?"
I said, "Not really. I fell and landed on my kneecaps and it really hurts." He said, "Oh, that must hurt." I said, "It does. It does hurt so much." He said, "Let me help you get up." I said, "Okay, and thank you." He said, "No problem." And then he walked away and I started walking to school.